Hello, I'm Brett Gilliland, host of the Circuit of Success podcast, and here's what's coming up on the show.
I think that our culture today prides and grandizes, the person who basically does it all, that works 24 hours a day, that doesn't sleep, they're mentally headstrong, they go over and above, it's that, mental toughness. To me, society really kind of grandizes that. But I think that also comes with a lot of, there's a lot of downsides as well.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today I've got Holly Baxter with me. Holly, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. And you are in beautiful Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it has actually just gotten a little bit cool here. And when I say cool, it's still in the 60s, but everyone's got 15 layers on. You know how the Florida is.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it was 25 degrees when I woke up this morning here. So I'm not feeling bad for anybody down in Tampa, Florida at 60 degrees,
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. But I'm supposed to be 55 to 58 degrees on Wednesday. So that's a big deal for us here. So we're excited about that. So, well, if you can, Holly, we'll dive in. But you are a clinical dietitian, a fitness coach, a trainer, an author, all sorts of stuff you're doing. It's amazing what you've built in a bodybuilder. You've won lots of tournaments with bodybuilding, which is amazing. We'll talk about that. But if you can, maybe give us a little lay of the land on what's made you the person you are today and gotten you to this level.
Yeah, so I guess that my role right now is somebody that's in the nutrition, exercise, science space. So I would call myself a nutrition or an exercise educator. So my day-to-day role is extremely diverse. There's a lot of things that are going on. Oh my gosh, my phone is just blowing up. It's meant to be on top. Let me start that again. So my role at the moment is extremely diverse. So I still do a couple of days where I'm practicing. Then there are going to be other days where I'm working on writing content. I'm putting together seminars and presentations, all that kind of thing. And then also working on, our coaching team. We have a nutrition app. We've got a whole host of things going on. So
That's amazing.
I guess the way that I got there is quite interesting, actually. So I grew up in Tasmania, Australia. So it's a pretty small town, and I would say small mindset. And I think, from a really young age, actually, I just never felt like I fit in there. And, everyone was kind of stay on the safe side, don't stand out, you don't want to draw attention to yourself. You just want to blend in. You want to fit in with the norm, fit in with the status quo. And I remember kind of thinking but that's not me. That's my authentic self is so different to the mindset of all the people that are around me. And I think I knew then that I wouldn't be in Tasmania, at least. So at the first opportunity I got, I jumped at, getting the acceptance into Deakin University, which was an hour and a half flight, but you go over water. So there's separation from me and my family at this point. So, I took the academic route. I went into an undergraduate of food science and nutrition. So I did my BS in food science and nutrition. And then I got done with that and was I still need to learn a lot more. Went back and got my master's in dietetics. And that kind of exposed me to a lot of athletes and, elite fitness professionals. So how I got into bodybuilding was actually through the work that I was doing with clients. So, I was coaching them and helping with their nutrition and putting together their training. And then, someone said to me, hey, have you considered competing yourself? You're pretty athletic. I know you used to do athletics and you grew up very sporty. Why not do it? So I set my sights on that. I knew that the World Championships that particular year was going to be held in Dubai. So I'd always wanted to travel to Dubai. So that was actually my motivator. It was very extrinsic. Wow. There was something internal about bodybuilding that I really resonated with at the time. I had to go on and win a state and then a national championships in order to get to the worlds, which I did in my first year, which was awesome. And then I went and won the world championships in Dubai. So I've kind of stuck at it since then. However, I will say it wasn't a pretty journey. It was not a glamorous one. I think behind the scenes, there was a lot of like deep rooted insecurity, a lot of internal struggle. I actually suffered from an eating disorder for about 15 years.
Wow.
And that was, I guess, related to some of my upbringing, the way that, I was raised, and then some unfortunate, traumatic experiences that I had as a young teenager. So, there's been the glamorous side that I think a lot of people saw for many years. I appeared to be this extremely successful, athlete. I've got,
Yeah.
my own business. On the surface, it looked all cool, but I like underneath there was like a very hurt, very broken young woman, and it actually took me about 15 years to really like step into my shoes and start working and healing through some of that trauma. And I think the work that I do now in the online space is very much female focused. I really enjoy and I connect with women, and a lot of it is to do with body positivity. It's to do with changing your mindset, working on your dysfunctional beliefs, dysfunctional thoughts,
Yeah.
and how that impacts your day-to-day behavior, and how that impacts your habits and who you are as a person. So yeah, there's a lot of diet and exercise information that I can give because of my experience. But then there's also a lot of like psychology that I bring to the table, because you can't separate those things. Like
No.
we are interconnected in a complex way with so many different things, that you can't ignore like the environmental influence that has on our food choices and our day to day. You can't ignore the social influences, the emotional influence. So it's I really enjoy working with people and looking at them as a whole, and then kind of getting to the root problems, that their limiting beliefs, and then helping them to succeed. And it's not just in their fitness. I really enjoy empowering people to achieve their best sense of self, and whether that's in their business, in their relationships, in their family life, finances. I'm always looking to like, how can we help change your mindset so that you can succeed?
I love that. I love that. So how do you get out of the 15 years of this trauma, as you called it? I mean, how did you what was the awareness for you to say, you know what, I got to make a change and I got to step out of that and get out of my comfort zone?
Yeah, again, I'm going to say it's not a pretty story. I actually was like clinically depressed. I was at rock bottom. I had many suicidal thoughts. So this was only 5 years ago.
Mm.
And I think, I'd been there as a teenager. I had actually, again, very like traumatic. I had, attempted suicide when I was very young. So I'd always, kind of lived with these memories. And I think I'd gone through enough of my adulthood kind of masking like, or detaching or distracting myself with, hobbies or, influence, or I would try to do things that would bring me up, that would make me feel better. But I never really tackled the root cause. And, I think by the time I got to my late 20s, I'd started to identify the behavior. And it was like, okay, this is a deep rooted problem within me that I need to fix.
Yeah.
So, I kind of had a bit of I don't want to say an epiphany, but I definitely had a come to Jesus moment, and was like, you have a choice to make a change right now. You can either choose to be unhappy for the rest of your life, and you're going to let all of these, historical events clout your potential and who you are born and put on this earth to be, or you can go and do something about it. And from that day on, I have had therapy, like mental health counseling myself, pretty consistently. I'd say for 3.5, 4 years now. I've probably missed like 5 sessions in a year, and it's every week. And, now it's not really getting myself out of that slump. It's about preventative. I'm doing things that are proactively keeping me in this really positive state of mind. So lots of therapy, lots of reading, and obviously my science background.
Yeah.
I'm reading all the papers. I'm going to all the
Right.
journals, like what works. how can I better myself?
Yeah.
So it had to come from within. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, that's amazing. So one, I appreciate you sharing. Again, I always talk about transparency and vulnerability. And I think you've obviously been very transparent and very vulnerable here already in the first few minutes. And so I appreciate that. But what do you continually do now? And I'm a guy that's always dealt with anxiety. And so I don't know if I can ever just say it's gone. Like, right. It's put in a box, taped up, put on a shelf. It'll never come back. I would assume maybe you would agree with that. Is what will you continue to do? Is it the therapy? Is it stuff like that you will continue to do throughout probably life?
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage anybody to get a therapist. It's just so nice to have somebody with a non-biased, view that can look at your lifestyle. They can look at your troubles or your wins without any kind of judgment, or they're not looking at it from a like emotional standpoint.
Yeah.
So I would definitely continue to seek professional help, and that's even as somebody that feels like very confident in knowing how to do things. It's just nice
Right.
to have that accountability. And everybody needs to be checked at some point. I think we can all divot and deviate off our path. So we've got to kind of correct that every now and then. And I think that's exactly what the role of a good therapist can
Yeah.
do. But I think also, I've really made a conscious, very intentional effort to surround myself with positive influences. I've made a very conscious decision to let go of friends in my life that were limiting me, that were holding me back, or that didn't support me. So, I think I know the person that I want to be. So I've kind of written it down. I do a lot of journaling and a lot of like deep thought process to whom do I want to be? What does she look like? How does she carry herself? How does she act around, her kids? How does she act around her friends? And, I really strive to do that on a daily basis. There's not a day that goes by where I'm not looking at some kind of positive affirmation. I'm not reading another chapter of a book that I'm interested in, and it's usually all mental health,
Yeah.
neuroplasticity of the brain, or breaking bad habits, or letting go of I guess your fear mindset, or you name it. So I really try to be intentional with putting those thoughts in my mind and keeping the people that are a good influence in my life very close.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
don't think people spend enough time, in my opinion, in what I call strategic think time, or what you probably call your journal time. I don't you agree? Like, I don't think people spend enough time doing that. And I know for me over the last 20 years, that's what's helped me. Well, really, I guess since July of 2005, when I started writing down in my black journal I carry with me everywhere I go. That was a game changer for me. Right. And it continues to be a game changer for me. But I just don't think people spend enough time thinking about their own lives and where they want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many people live in what I will call like their default state. It's like they're living on autopilot. And I'd say most people, or many people, have at some point in their life probably experienced something unpleasant, something extremely difficult, whether we want to call it trauma, or they've just had a bad experience. Those things, they impact us at a very deep level, and they shape the way that we react, to new stimulus. Like you can carry a historical view or perception of like a relationship that you might have been in, and maybe somebody said a certain thing to you, and that made you feel really insecure, or it made you feel upset or unheard, or whatever it was. But and that experience stays with you. So when we're experiencing those types of comments in our new life, new relationships, it's really difficult to like let go of those
Yeah.
past I guess narratives that we create for ourselves, and like truly be receptive and like aware of how that's actually being portrayed now. And I think we spend a lot of time in our like subconscious state, which is what I'm referring to when I say like your default setting, your autopilot. People, and that's the body's way of coping with a lot of things too. If you're somebody that's extremely successful and you've got your, finger on the pulse for like 10 different companies and you're trying to do a lot, it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint as to why the human brain wants to be able to put things on default because you're trying to deal with the new information. But I think that comes with a risk in that you're not always present. You're not always, aware, and self-awareness. Oh my gosh.
It's huge.
It's huge. And you're right. So many people do not spend enough time just thinking about anything. It's like they're just responding. There's no point at which they stop to slow down and just, sit with their thoughts
Right.
and, allow those thoughts to kind of, move in and out and without judgment, without criticism. That's a really unique skill. And I think it's probably one that a lot of successful people do really well. They're very self-aware.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about, you mentioned earlier, people you surround yourself with. That does matter. Right. And so I listened to Peter Attia on Joe Rogan's podcast. And then during my research, I saw you were on Peter Attia's podcast. I mean, that guy's doing stuff. It's amazing. I actually have, what's he called? The Centenarian Olympics or something, so I've got this passion. I want to live well into my 90s and play golf on my 100th birthday. And so when you think about the Peter Attias of the world, the people you're surrounding yourself with, like, what are you learning from them that you can share with our listeners to take it to that next level, no matter where you're at, whatever stage of life you're at? What do we need to do to take it to that next level?
Oh, I think, look, if there's one thing that I will say, and it's because I've made this mistake many times and I've continued to make it over and over, but I think you get a little better at this, and that is having self-care. I think that our culture today prides and like grandizes the person who basically does it all, that works 24 hours a day, that doesn't sleep, they're mentally headstrong, they go over and above, like it's that, mental toughness. Like, to me, society really like kind of grandizes that. But I think that also comes with a lot of, like, there's a lot of downsides as well, because you stop caring about, the things that are really important, that, you've only got this one vessel that's going to take you through your entire life. So I think, being able to slow down and to prioritize the things that are most important to you, I would say, are like two of the things that I did terribly. I wanted to do everything when I was a lot younger, and I still have lots of goals. I'm going to say they're all still floating around on a list somewhere. But, I think as I've gotten a little older, I've become more of a realist. I've recognized that, you can't do it all. You need to be able to delegate, and you need to be able to, I guess, take things at a pace that allows you to have like good health. And I know for many years I just burned the candle at both ends. I was trying to do bodybuilding competitions, and that's a part-time job as it is. And then I was trying to scale 3 companies and try and be a parent and try and be a good wife and move countries and look after my friends. So I'm like, oh, okay. I actually
This is
can't do all
impossible.
that. Yeah, and that was probably right around that time, like I said earlier, when I hit rock bottom. I kind of had this, realization where I was like, wow, you know, you're about to take your own life, and it's your own doing. Like, you can undo this. You have a choice. You've just got to change a few of these, perceptions, which I know for me was people pleaser, perfectionist. I was always, I guess, given praise when I was a teenager and a kid as well. That for my performance, it was like if I was getting good grades, if I was, winning all of my sporting events, if I did the best job at the recitals, and like if I was doing all these things, that's where I found that I was getting like love. But what I realized was, like, the way that I was parented, the way that I was raised by my parents, it was almost like it was conditional love. And it's taken me a lot of time to kind of reflect back on that, kind of dig into that, and understand where my current like perception of life has come from. to be able to go, you know what, I forgive yourself, I forgive me. You were wired this way, but it's not the right way. You don't
Yeah.
have to be everything to
Yeah.
everyone all the time. So I
Yeah.
think having very high goals and ambition, that's amazing. But I think being realistic with, the time frame that you get things done, and being gracious and compassionate in those moments of stress and struggle, that's
Yeah.
really helped me continue to like chip away without like just falling off altogether.
Yeah. But I think that you probably don't know that or won't realize that unless you are slowing down. Right? I always say slow down to speed up. So unless you're slowing down, unless you're kind of grading yourself, if you will, and journaling and thinking about it. I mean, I know for me, I was the same way. And I ended up coming up with this thing called Focus 90. And it's 90 minutes. It's for 90 days, for 90 minutes. It's these 3 or 4 or 5 really important things for me that I need to get done. Because what I found was I'd come home at 5 o'clock and go to basketball or baseball games, whatever it was, whatever season we're in with our children. And yet I was tired and I was quote unquote busy all day, but yet I wasn't really getting the things I needed to get done, but yet I was busy. And so for me to slow down and speed up and say, okay, if I can do these 3 or 4 or 5 things a day, that's a victory. And then if I can do them in the first 90 minutes, I've won the morning. And I know if I win the morning, I will win the day. Right. So when you hear me say that, for you, what's your quote unquote focus 90? Like I have mine. What are your no miss items that helps you win the day?
I think starting off the morning with like 30 minutes of, I guess, reading and 30 minutes of gratitude, 15 minutes of each. So 15 reading, 15 minutes of gratitude. So
Yeah.
that has become my staple. So I've got a couple of really great books that I will read. Some of them are biblical, some of them are just, psychology, but they're always very like positive. They get me thinking. They get me into that like conscious state of mind, like really doing some self-assessment.
Yep.
And then I'll reflect on that and, okay, what am I going to do today that, is going to progress me to, tomorrow? So that's kind of one of my non-negotiables. And then I'll always exercise. I don't always get the full amount of time in like today. I think I cut my exercise a little bit short. But, exercise, I think it just sets you up for, open thinking, a clear mind. And that's when you can really get into some of your deep work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's how I start my day. And I always have my priorities list running in the background. I've got my big 5-year goals, but then I've also got like I have to break it down into my short, week to week goals, month to month.
And what does that look like? Is that on a piece of paper that you carry with you, or is it like in a journal? Like, where's that at?
So I actually have it on a spreadsheet.
Okay.
So one of the tasks that I actually did to help me better, like become more effective and efficient with my time, believe it or not, was time blocking. So I think you just mentioned you felt like you were extremely busy all the time, but you weren't quite getting ahead with where you wanted to be. So I was in a very similar situation. So I had to work out, first off, what am I doing with my time? Because I had an idea up in my mind, but I had to start putting it on paper to really to believe what I thought I was doing. So that first task or that first step to making some positive changes was time blocking, and it was 15-minute intervals. So every 15 minutes on my calendar, just my good old Google Calendar, I would go in and put in what I was doing. So I did that for 2 weeks straight. It was the most painful, annoying thing that I've ever done.
That's right.
And I see how people kind of get pushed, like they don't want to do it. But it really helped me realize, okay, here's the time that it actually takes me to write a caption for social media. Oh, you know what? I'm actually missing out the fact that I've got to go and spend an hour researching and reading 3 different, studies, or then I find a meta-analyses and okay, this is actually study, and then I have to write it. So I was not being realistic with the time that it would take me for certain tasks. And then I also had to decide, okay, out of all the things that I'm doing, and we calculated it all up, I think I had a column for what I do in a day, what I do in a week, and then quarterly, and then annually. And it worked out to be about 16 hours of work per day because I put a time bracket on everything. So I was like, wow, no wonder I feel so busy. So what here is not important, and what can I delegate? So I went through that big list of all the things that I was doing, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not good use of my time. I'm not really that competent in that skill. So I need to hire somebody for this.
Yeah.
So that was the slowing down for me, putting the brakes on a little bit and finding the right team to help support me with, that building process. Otherwise I was constantly going to be spinning my wheels.
So I don't want to gloss right over that. So I mean that right there is worth the price, which is free for people to listen to this podcast, right? But that's worth the price of admission right there. That whole process that you just went through. What do I do in a day? What do I do in a week? What do I do in a month? What do I do in a quarter, right? Listing all those things out and then either do it and schedule it in your time blocking, right? Or delete it or delegate it, right? I mean, that is absolutely huge for people to take that into their lives and do it during their think time. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome. Yeah. So let's talk. You talked about your workout today. Let's spend some time on those of us that aren't trying to win a bodybuilding contest. I'm clearly not. But for those listeners that we just want to exercise, we want to be healthy, we want to be flexible and mobile into our 90s or whatever, right? Whatever people's goals are. How much time do we spend on cardio versus strength versus maybe flexibility, mobility, stretching, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, look, I think all of those are extremely important. I don't think that you would want to completely not do any of those. They're great, but it probably depends on what your goals are. I think for most of us, and I'm probably generalizing a little bit here, but I'll go with the stereotype human, which is usually want to lose a little bit of body fat, and that might be for health reasons. We're trying to improve some of your blood biomarkers, or it might be to, I guess, for the aesthetic. Everybody wants to look a little bit better, a little bit leaner, and I either of those is perfectly good reasons to exercise. So my old mindset prior to learning what I know now is that, I really enjoyed cardio. So I was like, well, I just need to do a lot more of that in order to get to this physique that I really like. And I recall in my early 20s, there was a period where I was probably exercising 6 days a week. I was taking boot camps and participating in them. And then I was also doing my own training, and I can guess it was probably about 15 hours of cardio a week. That was high intensity cardio. And I did a significantly lower amount of resistance training. I think when I was doing track athletics, we did once every other week, we'd go in and do 30 minutes in the weights room. And it was, explosive kind of, leg pressing for power. It was interesting. So, I was doing all this work, and I was also trying to restrict my calories. I was very, had a lot of rules, forbidden foods, restrictions. Again, this is back when I was really struggling with my eating disorder. So, I was doing all this work, and I just couldn't get to where I wanted to go. It made no sense to me at the time. So, the more I started following, some of the evidence-based researchers, and this is post like me having my degree. So there's a lot of people.
So you know what you're talking about.
So I already had 6 years of college education under my belt at this point, but there just wasn't a whole lot of that research integrated into my what I did. So I guess I happened to stumble across some of the leaders in the nutrition and exercise science field, and they really opened my eyes to the benefits of resistance training. So what has happened over time, and I promise I'm getting to a point here. What happened over time was that I started to build lean body mass through that resistance training. I followed the evidence-based approaches, which enabled me to see some radical improvements in my lean body mass in a very short period.
Can I interrupt real quick? I'm sorry. I hate interrupting. But when you say resistance training, can you define that just kind of so we're all on the same page? What does that mean to you?
Yep. So lifting weights in a gym or any kind of load-bearing exercise that is going to challenge your muscles and lead to positive hypertrophy adaptation. Where anything that can build muscle, we need to have a certain amount of stimulus and resistance in order to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So just hit in the gym.
Yeah.
I guess when that started to happen, I also noticed that my daily calorie intake was also a little bit higher. I could actually eat more, food. And the reason for that is your lean body mass is one of the driving factors that will boost your basal metabolic rate, which is essentially your metabolism. So the more muscle you have, the more you get to eat. It's wonderful. So, I think for everybody that is wanting to, lose body fat, if you can do the work in acquiring more muscle, and that does take time. If we look at like natural, like drug-free athletes, like I'm a natural athlete, so the process is always a little bit slower than some of the people in the the untested federations.
Yeah.
But it's the research shows for females, I'll speak specifically to. So it's about half of a kilogram per month is about the most lean body mass you can build when you're following a evidence-based resistance training protocol. Now, there's going to be some variability there. Like that's taking, randomized control trials and meta-analyses and looking at the average muscle gain. I actually err on the higher side of that based on the time that I was putting into the gym. Like I really focused on it. So, you can do that math, 6 months, we're really looking at like 3 kilograms of lean body mass is the most that you could put on. So, and that would then make a significant increase to your calorie intake. So I think the benefits of resistance training beyond, the way that can positively impact like our longevity, I think, that to me was the biggest game changer of everything. And I slowly started to taper down the amount of cardio that I was doing and basically replaced all of that with resistance training. And then I found I had to only do half as much exercise in order to maintain my weight, because now I've got this more muscular physique that on a day-to-day basis, it requires a lot more energy to fuel and to operate. Yeah. So I didn't have to do as much training as I used to be able to maintain a better physique and one that I liked a lot more, that had shape and, was contributing positively to my long-term health.
I like it. So I'm going to share this with you if I can. This is my workout here. I've got it written down to paper now because again, I'm a believer in that. And so for years, until like, a month ago, I didn't have all this written out. And so I would be the guy, I'd show up in my gym, I'd one in my basement, and it's like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'll just make stuff up as I go. Right. And so what I've done is, and this is through lots of research, is so Monday, all resistant training, weight, right? Tuesdays, I'm actually doing that zone 5 training that Peter Attia talks about. So I'm basically running really fast for, a while, a 3-minute run, 1-minute sprint, 3-minute run, 1-minute sprint, so on and so forth. Repeat that for 30 minutes, a stretching and some meditation. Wednesday, back to some weights. Thursday, I do this thing. It's like a golf workout, like for flexibility, mobility. Friday, either the Peloton or the Peloton tread for 30 minutes. And then the weekend is back to some weights. So when you hear that, where am I messing up or am I on point here?
No, I think you've just described like a really balanced approach to your health and fitness. Like you've got your endurance in there. You've got, you're training your anaerobic system. You're training your aerobic system. You've got mobility, flexibility. You've got something in there that sounds like a hobby. Like you've got your golf stuff. That sounds great. Now, if you said to me, hey, Holly, I really would like to be a lot more muscular, for aesthetic, let's say it's for aesthetic reasons.
Yeah.
Then I would probably say to you, all right, well, how many hours in the day do you have to contribute to activity? And if you said to me, well, I haven't got any more, like this is the only amount of time that I can use to set aside for my exercise. And then I'd say to you, let's get rid of some of the cardio, because you don't need that if you want to be muscular. So, everything's a trade-off. You've got to be able to make sacrifices here and there. Like my sacrifices, I can't tell you the last time I watched TV because that's my reading time, and that allows me to do my training, So everything's a trade-off. But if your goal is to move into like an old age with, all facets of health, it sounds like you're looking after your mental health by choosing things that you enjoy. You've got to do that. Otherwise, if you can't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to stick to it. So, and then you're looking after your cardiovascular health by doing some of the running, absolutely. And that sounds really rough, by the way. Then you're looking after your joints and you're doing your flexibility, your mobility. Yeah. You've got a good balance there.
All right. Perfect. Well, if anybody wants a copy of it, I can send it to them. Just send me an email or a text, and I'll be happy to share it. Share it with us a little bit about, you've got an app and you've got workout programs and you've got books and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe share with us where people can find more about that if they want help with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that I really wanted to do when I moved to the US was make sure that we can cater to a wide range of people. So, and specifically when it comes to cost. So I offer personally one-on-one coaching, and I have a great team of, I guess, girls, females who also offer coaching for a range of different fields.
Okay.
But one-on-one, it's going to be pricey, right? So in addition to that, we also have a nutrition coaching app, which is called Carbon Diet Coach. So my husband and
Say
I,
that again.
and it's called
Carbon.
Carbon Diet Coach. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is an advanced nutrition coaching program. We wrote an algorithm that adapts to the individual. So we can have two people, let's say they're twins, they're exactly the same, but they've got slightly different lifestyles. They're within 12 weeks of that program, I can tell you now, they would not be on the same nutrition targets or goals. The coach adapts to that individual. It makes adjustments based on the changes that we see for that person. So it's really cool. It coaches for fat loss. It coaches for reverse dieting, which is basically the concept of metabolic restoration. Like, we want to help induce some positive metabolic adaptation. So if you felt like you're eating nothing, you're training like a Trojan, and you're not getting anywhere, there's the very possibility that you've just got a lot of negative metabolic adaptation. It's like the body adapts to these lower calorie amounts. It's like you become more efficient. And again, from an evolutionary standpoint, your body is trying to protect you from starvation. It's a great thing from an evolutionary perspective. Yep. It sucks if you want to lose some body fat. But we have this setting called the reverse dieting setting that will help you slowly reintroduce calories back into your diet, which will facilitate just some adaptation. Like, the body doesn't quite realize that anything's changing, and all of a sudden you're eating more calories. So, and it has a muscle building setting as well. So that's our app. It's super cool, and it's $9.99. It's available on Android and iOS. So
that's a one-time $9.99 or $9.99 a month?
Per month. Yeah, there's annual fees. There's 6 monthly fees, and it's slightly cheaper, I guess, if you look at what the weekly cost is. So, but yeah, I mean, that has just under 50,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Users. It's really a great product, and my goal with that product is to over time implement some of the work that I enjoy doing as well, which is adding that coaching psychology aspect, which they are so important together, because I can give you all my knowledge. Like, I can say to you today, hey, all right, so we know that when protein and calories are equated, you can have any combination of carbohydrates and fats in your diet. You'll have a successful fat loss phase. I can teach you everything. And if you have a bad behavior or bad habit, like, I actually really just like going out with boys on the weekend fishing. And that was ruining your second and third training session every week. Like, no amount of knowledge or experience is going to help you. Like, you need to work on some of the fundamental, like, mindset changes. So yep. I want to be able to integrate that into this app, which it's definitely on our radar. We just have to get some more dev support to do that. And then we have a really cool workout platform too. So you can go in and use our workout builder. There's over 60 or 70 programs, something of that nature. It's catered to beginners through to advanced professional athletes. Like, I use these programs. And it's really flexible in that if you are working out from home, there's a program for you. If you're working out in the gym, there's a program for you. If you don't have access to 10 pieces of equipment, like, people often will get a single program from a trainer, and they're like, well, I don't have that. Now what do I do with this program that I've just spent money on? So we have a cool toggle feature where I've basically gone through and picked every single exercise that I can possibly think of that targets that same muscle group, and you can choose another exercise. So if you don't have a reverse hack squat in your gym, you're like, meh. You can go and choose from this list, and there's about 10 other exercises, 20 other exercises that you can choose. So that's a really cool program.
That's amazing. And that's through the same app, or is that a different spot?
It's a different company of mine. So
okay.
that's on our website.
Okay.
It's biolane.com. And that's part of our subscription-based service on our web-based platform. So
Okay.
yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff.
So let's talk from a business side real quick. We've been talking about, the mindset. We've been talking about fitness and all those things. So from a business standpoint, what makes you different than all the other 1,000 people out there, or more than that probably, that have this app or this next great thing, to where now I think you said 50,000 people are on the platform monthly? That doesn't just happen, right? So give us some business 101 on what you think you focus on and how you build that.
So I think we've kind of done things in reverse than how most businesses would approach things. So usually you take a product and you market it. You go, here's this amazing product. The product sells itself. So I think what we did was a little different. So we had myself and another influencer. So my husband, Dr. Lane Norton. So he and I basically marketed this product to our audience, and it was just so fortunate that both of us have a really loyal following on social media. That that really helped to grow it. And then of course, once they're using it, and then they're talking and introducing it to their friends. So a lot of the referrals will then come from word of mouth, but that's because it's also then a great product. So we've got not only two people that have really great reputation in the evidence-based community. I guess we're big personalities, and we've also got we walk the walk, we talk the talk, we have the degrees. Like, he's got the PhD. I've got the masters in dietetics, and both of us are competitive athletes. So, he's a world champion powerlifter. I have done bodybuilding and powerlifting, for many years. So I think we do have
results.
Pardon?
So the results matter.
Yeah, like you're getting people that know what they're talking about because they're scientists, but they also are like applying it practically to their sport. So yeah, it took us 2 years to kind of build out this app. But it does a really great job. So
that's awesome. So where do our listeners find more of Holly Baxter?
Look, I would say go and check me out on Instagram and YouTube. So on both platforms, my handle is Holly T Baxter. And you can get access to all of those things on my pages. You can find Carbon Diet Coach. You can find the Workout Builder. You can get access to me for one-on-one coaching, or my team of coaches as well.
That's awesome. Well, we will put all this in the show notes, Holly, and it's been awesome having you. I love talking everything we've talked about today. It's been great. Tons of notes, lots of takeaways for me, and I hope you have a great rest of the week and a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks